Spear, born 1918. Question mark. U.S. jazz pianist and composer. It appears you're famous, Thelonious. What does that mean? Yeah, all they list all the popes and Thelonious was like a founder. He was he laid down the foundation. He was the piano player. A lot of his compositions is classics now.
To use the word modern jazz player. Blacks who were listening to that music saw an expression of independence and pride and strength. Thelonious Monk just represented that. The earliest example of the Black Revolution, the Black uprising in a sense, was in music, was in the bebop period. The musicians weren't obviously trying to please an audience, but they were playing their music their way. It was a real independent expression. It was unorthodox. It wasn't popular. That his records really weren't selling. He was more an underground figure. He was also modern rock.
Thelonious was like a founder. He was he laid down the foundation. Piano player. A lot of his compositions is classics. Thelonious was his unique contribution was largely unrecognized. He was known by very few. One who knew was the great saxophonist Coleman Hawkins. In 1944, Hawkins hired him, and Monk made his first record. Thelonious Spear, born 1918. Question mark. U.S. jazz pianist and composer. It appears you're famous, Thelonious. What does that mean? Yeah, all they list all the popes Born in Rocky Mount, North Carolina in 1917, moved to New York City in 1922 with his mother and family. They settled in the West 60s in a neighborhood called San Juan Hill. The pianist James P. Johnson lived there, and U.B. Blake's musical, Shuffle Along, opened in a local theater. The streets of San Juan Hill were filled with music. The sounds of the singers, the piano players, and the big bands drifted from home radios and blended with sidewalk gospel music. Monk began playing the piano without formal training. Later he took lessons and studied music theory at the Juilliard School of Music. But his real teachers were the master jazzmen of his time. Fats Waller, Art Tatum, and Duke Ellington. At 17, he toured the United States with a gospel group. Monk returned to New York and became the house piano player at Minton's Playhouse, the scene of a revolution in music. There, with Charlie joined the revolution. It was called bebop. His unique contribution was largely unrecognized. He was known by very few. One who knew was the great saxophonist Coleman Hawkins. In 1944, Hawkins hired him, and Monk made his first record. By that time, Monk had already composed many of his major works. He wrote many more, and the language of jazz was changed forever.
Dolores was like the founder. He was like he laid down the foundation. He was the piano player. A lot of his compositions, his classics. Modern jazz player. Blacks who were listening to that music saw an expression of independence and pride and strength. Thelonious Monk just represented that. The earliest example of the black revolution, a black uprising in a sense, was in music, was in the bebop period. Where the musicians weren't obviously trying to please an audience, but they were playing their music their way. It was a real independent expression. It was unorthodox. It wasn't popular. That his records really weren't selling. He was more an underground figure. He was also a man about whom stories about unreliability were circulating. Live television is the scariest medium of all because it's millions of people. If you're going to act silly or you're going to be late, you're not going to show up, it's going to be a glaring omission. And I just remember being very, very nervous. He sat down and he played. I was aware of a real professional. There he is. What's there to be nervous about? He's there.